Destiny Udogie's signed for Spurs. He got loaned back to Udinese last season. We're quite excited about him. We're not
Yeah, you
sure,
should be.
really. Tell
You
me about
should
him.
be.
What's his reputation like currently in?
When we interviewed him about a year ago, at the time, he was the only teenager who was regularly racking up minutes in the Serie A. And he was doing he was having a really good season last season. He's had a decent to good season, not as good as last season, but I think that's also got to do with the fact that when you have a breakout season, the following season is always the most difficult one, because Serie A is so tactically good that defenders and coaches study you and how to, disturb your game and to get you off your game. And he's kind of been the victim of that, but he's done actually impressively well, that considering. I think the coach, Andrea Sottil, and how he plays has also helped him a lot. He's also very, Udinese is a young coach who is very highly rated, and we expect big things from him. As for Udogie, no, look, he's a very exciting player. The only thing is that I think in terms of position, who's gonna be the new Spurs coach and how they play and so on.
Indeed,
he is a wing back. That's his position. You have to, if you're going to have him there, you're going to have him as a wing back.
Yeah, that is a worry, because if it is Postecoglou who's coming in, it seems like he plays a 4-3-3.
That's a waste.
We have the same issue with Porro on the right hand side, who isn't a fullback, he's a wing back.
That's a waste.
Yeah.
That's a waste. If you're going to have those two players, you're going to have to bring a coach who plays with a back three and wing backs, because those are the positions that these two players excel in. And I think that if Spurs had maybe signed Porro in the summer, I think they would have. I think the problems with Conte would have been a bit less, because he relies. That system is so reliant on a decent wing back.
I mean, I think Postecoglou is the only one who's willing to come to us. So that's our issue. So can you describe Udogie's playing style and what makes him stand out?
He's very complete, I'd say. I think his crossing is great. He's good at running in, those runs from wing back, the fifth man kind of runs down the wing, and therefore I think he scores quite a bit as well. He's fairly good with both feet. I'd say he's pretty complete, to be honest. I don't think he's got much of a weakness. I think he can, obviously as a young player, he can improve on everything.
Yep.
But if you ask me if he has any weaknesses, I think I would say nothing that stands out. Obviously improve everything.
Of course.
I'd say.
What is it? What stands out about him though, in terms of why did he catch the eye when he broke into the team?
Because he was so young and played with such maturity, and the talent was obvious for everyone to see. A young player who played in a very demanding position as a wing back and did so really well. I mean, usually you see wing backs, what they struggle with is a positional phase. When do they drop? When do they push up? But with Udogie, he was a natural from day one. Of course, as I say, it doesn't mean he's the finished product yet, but it was the level at which he started playing was so impressive that it really caught everyone's eye.
So he just came straight into the first team, and he was flying.
Yeah, he was, and I mean, this is Udinese. This is what they do. They are a machine in turn. Them and Atalanta are these assembly lines when it comes to delivering and producing fantastic talent in Italian football. And Empoli in recent years have become that as well, but not to the level of Udinese, who's been doing it for 20, 30 years, and Atalanta for pretty much that same amount of period as well.
So you mentioned about him playing as a wing back. Has he ever played in a back four as a left back?
He has, but it's not where he does well. And he's also they played in the central midfield at times as well, when called upon. But as he told us, that's not his position. He's a wing back. He sees himself as a wing back. He wants to play a wing back. And I think one of the biggest shame, I think, for me, from an Italian football perspective, in Antonio Conte leaving Spurs, is that I so would have wanted Antonio Conte to coach Destiny Udogie. I think it would have been fantastic for Conte and for Udogie. I think he would have gotten him to the next step, I think.
In Italy, how is Conte viewed? Is his time at Tottenham viewed as a mark on his career, or did they blame Tottenham and Daniel Levy for the failing?
I think they blame Daniel Levy more than they blame Antonio Conte, I would say.
Is that nationalism though, or is it?
No, it's because Conte's track record proves it. He's never failed anywhere. And for most people, his biggest achievement at Spurs, and personally, I'm one of them, I think one of his greatest achievements in his career was getting Tottenham to fourth spot last year with that team, who has no business being in the top four. I honestly don't think qualitatively that team was good enough to finish in the top four. And I think he overachieved massively in doing so. I think you can only overachieve to a certain extent. At some point, you regress to the mean. The quality you have regresses to the mean, and I think that's what we saw this season.
Yeah,
a little bit.
agreed.
And it's like it's not a dig on Tottenham as such. I just think that bringing Antonio Conte in and telling him that, because he's used to winning now. That's just the kind of guy he is. That's just the kind of career he has. He wants to win now, not in 3, 4, 5 years. And I think for him, that ambition, that they don't see eye to eye, I think that was a big cause of concern. And I think that's what made it so toxic. And it doesn't seem to me, based on how he talked, that there was a good dialogue between himself and Levy.
It wouldn't be the first manager to fall out with Daniel Levy and dialogue being an issue. I think if you give any manager, there's no manager under the sun that can do what Conte did with the defence that he had at his disposal.
I mean,
our defence is a lower half Premier League defence. I mean, I'm not. Eric Dyer might get into somewhere like Everton, but he's got no business really playing it.
I mean, he got with Matt Doherty. I mean, he's a Championship player. With all due respect,
No, he is,
I don't
yeah,
even see him as a Premier League player. And
he had a purple patch under Conte. He was like,
exactly.
Where's this come from? Where's this player come from?
But this is the thing that Conte does. I mean, if you look at, he won 3 Serie A titles with Simone Padoin and Giaccherini and these very limited players. I mean, he got the worst Italy national team side in my lifetime, probably ever. Qualitatively, to a quarterfinal against, beating Spain and losing on penalties against Germany, who, he got Graziano Pelle, Eder, Candreva, Giaccherini, all these very limited players to play some fantastic football. They outplayed Spain in that game, and that was a good Spain side in the Euros. I mean, to me, some of his greatest achievements, I think, getting Spurs to the top 4, that Italy side to the quarterfinal. Given the quality available to him, I think those were fantastic. That was some of his greatest work. Okay,
back to Udogie then. Is it Udogie or Udogie?
Udogie.
Udogie.
Destiny Udogie.
Udogie.
Because he's of Nigerian descent. He told us, and he's never really been to Nigeria since he was a kid. But he wants to play for Italy. He was very clear about that when we interviewed him. He said he feels Italian. He wants to represent Italy at senior level, and I hope to God that he is soon integrated into the Italian national team, because I think he's a fantastic
I was going to ask, how far away is he based on?
Well, here's the thing: Italy have abundance of talent on certain positions, and then nothing in certain. The striker position is a problem. The midfield, they're spoilt for choice. It's the central midfield, and on wing back, there's a lot of talent as well. And so they're a little bit spoiled for choice at left wing back, not as much on the right. But then again, Di Lorenzo, they don't really play with a back three. And if Di Lorenzo plays, he's such an intelligent player that he can play as a full back, wing back, whatever you want him to do. The Napoli captain. But yeah, they're a little bit spoiled for choice on left wing back. But I don't care. I think Udogie needs to be integrated as soon as possible into the first team setup.
Did he have any sort of standout performances where you just thought, wow, this kid's special? He's good. We already know this, but is there any performances where
not so much this season, but last season there were a couple of games. I think the game where, controversially, the goal against Milan, I thought it was really good in that game overall, but obviously that was marred, because of, did he score? There was controversy surrounding that goal. But against the big sides especially, I think last season especially, he really stepped up and showed what a player he is and how talented he is.
And has he shown any sort of failings in coping with the pressure of first team football?
No,
just completely...
not at all. That's the thing that struck me the most when we interviewed him, is the maturity, the relaxed attitude, the kind of, he's very down to earth, knows who he is, what he needs to work on, what he needs to improve on. None of this superstar nonsense, but also very doesn't make it bigger in his head than it needs to be. He knows where he is. He believes in himself without being cocky. And he strikes me as someone who relishes the challenge. He likes challenges. He takes it in his stride. He takes it the right way, which I think is really important to be able to cope mentally. The mental aspect of it is really important.
The fee is 17 million euros, as I understand it. Is that a fair price? Have we overpaid or underpaid? It's hard to tell.
I think you underpaid a little bit, if I'm perfectly honest. I was surprised last season when you got the deal over the line, because I thought that, well, Udinese should probably usually like to hang on a little bit and then cash in big. But of course, last year was still, they were, reeling the effects of COVID Italian football a lot. And so maybe they felt that they needed that, they'd rather just cash in now. And, 17 million in the bank is better than zero, I guess. So that's how they looked at it. But I think I think Tottenham got quite a steal here. I think he'll be worth a double in no time.
Maybe there's some sort of sell on clause.
There usually is with Udinese. I'm not aware of it, but I'm sure there is.
Yeah.
And also you have to remember he was they will get the because of him being so young and coming up the youth ranks there, and they're entitled to lots to money anyway when a player moves. So
I see.
They're a very well run club, Udinese. Very well run.
Is there any other players that you might compare him to in the Premier League or elsewhere? Is it, for those that haven't seen him, is that a difficult question?
I really don't like doing these comparisons, and I'll tell you why. Because they get completely blown out of proportion and taken out of context. I'll give you an example. When Cesare Casadei was signed by Chelsea a year ago, we did on the pod, we spoke about him, and I said that he has traits that remind me of Frank Lampard. And some stupid people in the British press took that as saying
the new Frank Lampard.
He's the new Frank Lampard.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm like, no, I didn't say that. I really didn't say that. I would never say something as stupid as that, because Cesare Casadei had up until that point not played a second of first team football, of senior team football. He'd only excelled at junior level, like a youth team level. So it's frustrating. So I'm going to stay away from that.
Fair enough. You don't want to get burnt.
I'm not doing that. No, because I know that it's regardless of what I say.
Yeah.
It's
So
stay away from that.
Fair enough. Is there anything about him that you think he might struggle with in terms of the Premier League and adapting? Because it's a different style of football to Italy.
Yeah,
it's physical, very physical, and
the physicality I'm not worried about.
Yeah,
but I am worried about in Italian football the level for what is a free kick and what isn't is they give free kicks much more often than they do in the Premier League.
Right.
That's an aspect that he has to adapt to, I think, more than anything. The physicality, the technical side, the stamina, the intensity, he will have no problems with that. Yeah. It'll take some time to adapt, of course, but I don't think there'll be any big problems. I think that the issue will be how hard he is challenged and that he won't get free kicks when he usually gets free kicks. Because I think English referees, I mean, you can argue it as much as you want. They're different football cultures have different levels. That's fine. But I feel sometimes that English referees are nowhere near as good as the quality of the players in the Premier League.
I think you won't find many people arguing with that. I think it's definitely dropped off for sure. And
I don't think they're very good at reading the game. I don't understand how they make some of the choices and decisions they make, despite having technology at their disposal.
Yeah.
They're not. Let me put it this way. I don't think Premier League referees are of Premier League level. Let's put it that way.
What was the reaction to Anthony Taylor's performance against Roma?
Roma were fuming.
I saw that. Yeah.
And I'd say fans took it too far at the airport.
Yeah.
Attacking his family was despicable.
Yeah.
Absolutely vile and despicable and silly. But I got to be honest with you. For me, the scandal wasn't the penalties. I think I was watching the game on Sky Sport Italia, and they thought it wasn't a penalty either, because if you look at the replay they had from behind, the ball hit his arm not when it was at his side, but behind him, which makes it not in an unnatural position, and he didn't make it body unnaturally bigger.
Yeah,
and there was no intent. So I think the penalty calls were correct. I think the not sending Eric Lamela off was insane. he should have been sent off. He had no business being on the pitch. So I mean, especially if you're going to keep that level and give that many yellow cards, then you have to be consistent. And I think that is the problem, the lack of consistency with Anthony Taylor and referees in general, but especially Premier League refs. I think some of them are just unbelievably inconsistent.
Yeah, there was like a directive at the start of the season to let play go a lot. So you do a lot of what would previously have been considered a free kick this season seems to be have let go. They want the pace of the game to be upheld.
That's great. That's fine. That's fine.
Well, I was just saying, like Udogie, is he used to be drawing fouls? Is that one of his attributes?
Yes, they will go at him because he can dribble. He's technical. He's good with both feet. Like I said, he can shoot and score with both feet. He's good in the air. He's a troublemaker. Like he causes defensive problems individually, but also in a system. And I think he's raring to go now and prove himself in the Premier League. Again, I really hoped that Antonio Conte was still there for Spurs' sake and for his, because I think this summer, if those players that you are signing are really coming, I think they would have suited Antonio Conte's style really well. I think you will have a team for Antonio Conte, but you won't have Antonio Conte there to guide it.
Yeah, well, I know. I mean, it's been a frustrating.
This seems to be a
season.
recurring theme with Spurs, isn't it?
Mate, I've never felt more disillusioned as a Spurs fan as I do at the moment. I'm trying to stay positive, and obviously, what else can you do? Because I can't control what happens or what Daniel Levy does. But the frustrations are at an all-time high, I think.
It's so funny because every single Spurs fan I know and I'm in contact with saying the exact same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I was talking to friends of mine. Like, a friend of mine's a Queen's Park Rangers fan, and he's like, "What are you moaning about? Imagine being us, but we're in like a mini league of the biggest clubs in inverted commas in the Premier League, and we're bottom of that league all the time, and we never win. You know, we never get over the line. So that's where the frustration comes. And you got to...
For me, one of the things that I found so mind-boggling is sacking Mourinho before a cup final. I don't understand what the point of that was.
Who knows? No one understands, apart from Daniel Levy and not even Jose Mourinho, because he talked about it, didn't he? He sounded like, I don't understand.
Furious.
The only club he's never fallen in love with is Tottenham Hotspur. Not that Spurs fans have much time or United fans have much time for Mourinho, but the proof is in the pudding that the managers that are serial winners elsewhere cannot do it at Tottenham.
That's what I was going to say. Like, at some point, maybe, it's not everyone else, but maybe it's me kind of thing.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. Of course it's us. And we don't know why. And the only finger you can point at is Daniel Levy. It's the only way.
It is him. He's a fantastic businessman.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, I think what he's done with the stadium and turning it into this, I think he's understood what football is in terms of football is entertainment. You're in the entertainment business.
Of course, yeah.
And the stadium is an entertainment venue. And I think what he understands is that except for the 19 games in the Premier League and however many in the FA Cup and League Cup and Europe, the stadium is empty on almost 300 days a year.
Yeah.
Which is an entertainment venue just to sit there. You need to fill that up with different entertainments, with different events. And I think that he understands that. And I think that's clever. That's smart. And that brings people into the community. And that brings money into the community and the club, which the club can then use. I think that is a very smart way of doing it. However, he knows nothing of football. He doesn't understand how to build a winning football project. He just doesn't.
Evidently. I
mean, I think the best thing he could have done is hire a director of football, hire a sporting director, give them the budget, and say, "This is it.
I mean,
this is what I want you to do."
Just to be fair to him, I think he is trying. He's trying to step away. We brought in Scott Munn, who's now the chief footballing operator. He thought Paratici was there to run the football
and
side.
And he would have been if he hadn't been convicted of crimes.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw this list. Forbes released the list of the 10 most profitable, not the most revenue, but the most profitable sports franchises in the world. And Tottenham turn over a bigger profit than any other football club in the world.
Yeah. They're doing it the right way without financial doping, and I think that's commendable. I think the model that they've got is I think it's admirable. They don't pull up a lot of debt. They don't do financial doping. No. I think that's how you should do things. I think that should be commended. We
just need to start winning on the pitch. As well, that's the most important thing. And sometimes it doesn't feel like that. Anyway, how does he contribute defensively, Udogie?
I think that's an aspect of his game that he even feels that he can improve on, which is normal for a lad. He's a young lad, so and he likes to attack, and that's his strength. But I think that's the aspect that he feels to himself. He told us that he feels he could improve the most. I think routine and experience is the biggest key here. I think the more experience he gets, the more he'll improve, because he's intelligent. He's a very intelligent player. He understands football. He reads the game really well.
I think Perisic, when he came from Inter, on the ball, around the box, deadly. 11 assists this season. Incredible return. But defensively, he struggled at times, and I wonder if the style of play meant that, or maybe the style that Tottenham play, or the way the football is played in the Premier League, that his defensive aspects of his game he struggled with, and I wondered if Udogie might suffer a similar fate.
Yeah, I think Perisic came. I think the Perisic situation, because he worked so well at Inter, and he was used to Inter played a different way, and had much more of the ball, and were much more attacking. And I think with Perisic, they controlled the tempo and dictated that Inter's midfield controls the tempo and the passing. Inter, one of the most safest passers in all Europe, their midfield. And I think that aspect of it made it easier for Perisic to play and be as good as he was. However, he was defensively incredibly solid for Inter as well.
Really?
I mean, I don't know how many goals we saw him thwart with making these 70-yard dashes down, running back to help out in defense. He's a physically, what he's done to his body after Bayern Munich with the dietist, the nutritionist, and the training regime he's got. He's a specimen, Perisic. He is unbelievable. I remember Inter, Bastoni, and these other players, they were talking about how, when he was at Inter, they were speaking to him about, what a fantastic physical specimen he was. And then he said, I would love to do that, but I can't eat the way he does. I mean, he eats just the way that he eats. It's just, this much tuna and this much that, like, it's so rigidly precise. And, they said, no, I couldn't eat like that. I would go crazy. Like, I'd be depressed. And he's a super professional. I think he suffered because of Tottenham not clicking the way that Conte wanted it to click.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
But I think if you keep him, Perisic, as far as mentors go, I've seen Ivan Perisic mentor players really well and get them to take the next step. What he did with Denzel Dumfries, what he's done with, at Inter to several younger players and other players was just fantastic. And I think if Destiny Udogie were to come there, I couldn't think of a better mentor than Ivan Perisic. Seriously, on and off the pitch, Perisic is a super professional.
Yeah, I think if he wants to stay, there's no chance that he would force him out. And like you say, he's a professional, and just on the ball, he's both his feet are.
Yeah,
he's got two wands basically.
That's what I think that. I mean, if you were to compare him to someone, I think in the attacking phase he is like Perisic a lot. He can beat his man. He's very both feet. He can score with both feet, and he's good in the air. I think the attacking side, if I were to compare him, I'd say when he was at his absolute best, there are similarities there, but no.
Is there any chance you can give us Bastoni? We need defenders.
No.
Sure?
I'm sorry. Well, I'm sorry, but if you're going to have to pay the price, I mean, this is something that you guys that people don't understand about. They read these headlines and in tabloids about Inter being in financial trouble and not understanding what those troubles are, and then think, oh, well, we can lowball them. That's just not how it works.
Yeah,
and Inter aren't that club.
That is exactly how they're seen, like the way fans speak.
Yeah, and I don't blame the fans, because the way that the British media talks about these things is so superficial and shallow and often very wrong. But they build a lot of, fans only read what's out there, and when you have the biggest megaphones pumping out misinformation and nonsense and lies, well, then that's what's going to be regurgitated.
Indeed.
At Inter, it's very simple. If you pay what Inter want, you can have an Inter player.
How much?
If you don't pay it, yeah. I mean, they value him at 80, 90 million. Like, they're not gonna, and he wants to stay as well. He's been very clear about that.
Yeah. Even when we had Conte, it didn't ever feel lightly. All right, then, if not him, can we have Barella?
No. Same thing there. Yeah, pay £100 million and we can talk about it.
Okay.
I mean, no, but seriously, like that's just, and also you have to understand, these guys, they play in a Champions League every year. They're in the Champions League final.
Could win it.
They could even win it. They've won 5 trophies with Inter just in the last 3 years. They won the Euros with Italy. They're serial winners. They want to win.
Yeah, don't come to Spurs then.
Sorry, you said it, not me, so I don't get hate.
No, you're fine.
No,
we know what we are, I think, by now.
No, I think, yeah, of course you are. I mean, most fans are not deluded about
No.
Okay. They are. So
finally, what's your, if you had to predict, the next 3 years for Udogie, then what do you foresee? Could he be a success at Tottenham? Do you think he will be, or do you think it might come at somewhere else? Or what's your prediction?
I think it hinges on who the next manager is. If you're going to bring someone in who plays with a back 4, there's a problem there. There's going to be a big problem there, and I think we could see him leave soon. Then, but if you bring someone in, return back to Italy on a loan or something, to someone who plays with a back 3. So I think that could be a problem. But then again, we could be all wrong, and I could be just completely wrong, and he turns out to be a fantastic winger. And I don't know, whoever takes over plays a 4-3-3, and he becomes a world-class winger. Or if there's also that possibility that you play with a back 4, but the right back becomes, when you're attacking, you go into a back 3, like inverts.
Yeah.
So that's also a possibility, maybe.
Yeah, Ryan Mason's been doing that a bit, and with Porro and Emerson Royale and Mourinho, actually, when he started, he had that. He played a sort of inverted left fullback when Anyway, that's fantastic. Thank you very much, Nima. If they want to find you on Twitter, what's your Twitter at?
My personal one is at Nima Tavallaey. Nima Tavallaey, and if you want to follow the Italian Football Podcast, it's at ItaFootPod on all social media platforms.
We will obviously include that in the description for the podcast. Cheers. We're also going to link your interview with Destiny from, like you said, a year ago. It was fascinating.
Yeah, about a year ago at this time.
Yeah, so it was a fascinating listen and watch, so check it out. Thank you very much.
He speaks good English as well, so there won't be any problems adapting to the language. That's for sure.
What is it? Just quickly before we end, what is his temperament like? I mean, what in terms of his personality? How likely is it that there will be any issues at all? Just
I think he. Look, from my perspective, having dealt with him and just having that conversation and seeing him on the pitch week in, week out for 2-3 years, I don't think there'll be a problem at all. He's very down to earth kind of guy. But then again, the Premier League in London is a different animal. Udine is a small city, small place. Moving from Udine to London and being a superstar Premier League footballer, and the attention and the sheer money and fame that comes with that it's a lot to handle for young people. It's a lot to handle for young players and young guys, and I think it's impossible to predict what could happen there. But I think he has a good support system. I think he has a good environment of people around him, which is the most important thing. And to me, if I were to say anything and predict on how, I think it will go quite well, because I think his football is too important for him to be distracted by other things.
Nima, thank you so much.
You're welcome.